You say what? Does God have a political party? Of course. We all know what party God belongs to. We know God is definitely... What's going on, y'all? In today's video, we are going to discuss what political party God endorses. And I'm going to give you 7 points from an amazing leader on how you should be thinking through things as a believer engaging politics. It's a weird conversation in a weird time. Unless you've been under a rock, you realize that American politics has been front and center all over the international news. It has been a very fierce time. So what we're looking at currently is President Donald Trump losing an election. I use air quotes because some people would say he didn't lose, to President-elect Joe Biden. I guess what I wanted to do is give my vantage point. I know everybody says you should stay out of politics and there's no point in getting into it. Not everybody. Lots of people say you should stay out of politics. Here's my thought as a Christian. If you stay out of politics as a Christian, what you're essentially saying is that Satan can have it. Whenever you decide to stay out of something that, contributes to our civic or political realm, you're saying that what the Hebrews would call Kadush Hashem, which means bringing about the glory of God, needs to not be involved in this particular realm of the world. I would disagree with that. I think our footprint needs to be everywhere. So here's my thought on this all though. So I'm gonna just give this caveat really early, all right? If you fit neatly as a Christian, if you fit neatly into any political party, then you do not fit neatly into the kingdom agenda. I'm gonna say that again. If you fit neatly into any political party, you do not fit neatly into a kingdom agenda. There should be no political party that perfectly encapsulates what it means to be about the Father's business. We did not see Yeshua or Messiah as this all-in political patriot. We didn't see that. We saw him being about his Father's business, and there were particular times when he said, render unto Caesar what is his. Obviously, he obeyed certain rules and followed certain laws of the day that were, led by political perspectives. So what I believe is this: there are certain ethics, there are certain morals, there are certain principles that in many instances are highlighted by political parties. But those ideologies are not unique to any political party, regardless of your political party. Morality and ethical behavior are not unique to those parties. Those ideologies are first and foremost biblical. So what we're upholding are biblical perspectives. Now, I know some people would say, hey, the conservative or the Republican Party upholds the lives of the unborn and some particular conservative moral values. And then others would say the Democratic Party or parties of the like uphold ethical values such as love your neighbor as yourself, the justice of the oppressed, which is all throughout the Old Testament and Amos. And so what ends up happening is that these two perspectives, where they're supposed to be working together, end up being combative. And people choose a side as if there's a moral high road on either particular end. And what I would say is that the moral high road is realizing that neither one of them fit neatly into God's agenda, and that God has an agenda which encapsulates both. I love my brother Justin Giboney, who represents the AND campaign, where he talks about moral responsibilities and social justice. And I know people hate the term social justice, but when we're saying social justice, all we're saying is exactly what the Good Samaritan said. It's taking care of the needs of the marginalized, the disenfranchised, and the oppressed. And so both of them matter, and no political party fully encapsulates them. Now, that being said, there does come a point where you may need to make a decision as to who you vote for, which I'm sure many of you have already made that decision. If you haven't, I'm sorry, it's too late. But there's some other races that you need to pay attention to in the same vein. If you've made that decision, you're making a decision based on your convictions. What I'm not here to say is that your convictions are wrong or that you chose wrong. What I am here to say is that I hope you are critically thinking about that and making a decision based off of understanding that neither side has it all right. Neither side is the perfect picture of it. I know people would say, well, hey, this side represents morality, maybe the life of the unborn. And this side represents the lives of people who are born, who are being killed. Which one do I highlight? Well, God would not say either one is more important. God would say both are equally important. So what are you then to do? Well, let me tell you, the first thing you're to do is you're to recognize and realize that these two particular perspectives are not the end all be all. They're a piece of your role here on earth. They're not the only way that you demonstrate your care for these particular issues. So if you care for the unborn, I would hope that you're doing something outside of voting to demonstrate that care. If you care for the marginalized, I would hope that you're doing something outside of voting to demonstrate that you care for the marginalized. What's up, y'all? This is me, LECRAE. Y'all want to go behind the scenes with me? Y'all want to hear the real conversations, the pain, the hurt, the struggle, all the truth being told and the tea being spilled? Then y'all need to hit that link below. Check out my Patreon page. It's going down. And let me leave you with this. This is a new friend of mine and a brilliant pastor, Pastor Rich Velotis. And I hope I'm saying your name right, Rich. But Pastor Rich out of Brooklyn, he says this. He says, the church is to be a species of its own kind. And he gives seven marks of faithfulness if you're a believer dealing with God, politics, and the church. And he comes out of 1 Corinthians 1:10-17. And he says this. Number one, you're faithful to the kingdom if you're not paralyzed with anxiety as a result of the election, right? You're not paralyzed with anxiety as a result of the election. And it's not because you don't think these decisions make a difference, but you realize that God is ultimately in control. Of course, all the decisions make a difference, but you realize that there is a greater grand narrative and that God is ultimately in control. You pray for those you disagree with. That's a mark of faithfulness. You're not enemies with your brothers and sisters who choose to vote differently than you all. And I know some of you say, well, you can't possibly be my brother in the Lord if you're voting this way or voting that way. Absolutely they are. Absolutely they can be. There are going to be disagreements. That's just the reality of it. And are you praying for those you disagree with? Just like denominational disagreements. You're still going to be with those people for eternity. It'd be best if you begin to pray for them and try to find common ground and understanding. Number three, you confess your limits and your blind spots. That's what people don't like to do. They like to believe I've got this all figured out. One of the best things I learned early on is read four perspectives, right? On everything you're thinking, on whatever perspective or thing you're looking at, politics, get four different perspectives so you can get a full picture of where people are coming from. I don't know, whatever it may be, baptism, get four perspectives so that you can have a fuller picture of what people think as it pertains to this particular issue. And realize you have blind spots. You do not anoint a candidate or party as God's candidate or God's party. I've seen this too many times. God does not have a political party. God has not put his hands and said, this is my representative in the presidency. Obviously, whoever ascends to become the president is in some senses under the sovereign control of God. But at the end of the day, it's not as if God is saying this is his party and this is his anointed candidate. That's not the way this works. Essentially, what we're saying is that in his grand narrative, certain people have been put in positions of power. And we're to do our part to realize that this is a human being, not a perfect person, who's not a part of a perfect party either. So once you begin to think this is an anointed person and an anointed party, you're moving into idolatry. That's all I'm gonna say on that. Jesus's ethical concerns become your concerns, not the party's concerns. Yeshua's concerns become your concerns. And so that's what I want people to understand, is that when it comes to politics, it's not about these political ideologies that we're holding up. You shouldn't be so passionate about them because your party represents them. You should be passionate about them because they are biblical and ethical. And let me say this again, no party has all of them down. So if you're saying, no, but this one, no. Both parties, all parties are probably highlighting an aspect of biblical ideology. And so you're going to have to make the tough decision as to what you feel is most important. And hopefully that's come from you doing some critical thought and realizing the benefits and the attributes of both particular sides, or all sides if we're talking about third parties. You spend more time listening to Yeshua than cultural voices. Too often you're listening to Fox News and CNN and you're not listening to scripture. And so your whole perspective has been from the news. And this is what I'll say. For a lot of people who live in the middle of nowhere, you have no idea the perils that are going on in communities outside of yours. For a lot of people who live in isolated or very ethno-centric communities, you may not have any idea what's going on in communities outside of yours. And what I'm saying is that God's concerns for people should inform you, not the news. Just telling you that. So make sure that you're listening to God's voice more than cultural voices. And lastly, you live with a hope that makes no sense to the world, right? So you are not completely devastated when your candidate loses because you realize that I still have a hope. The tomb is still empty. You don't feel as if all the problems of the world are solved if your candidate wins, because that's not ultimately where your hope lies. So end of the day, what I would say is this, and I know people feel like I've leaned one way or the other. Let me tell you something. I've made some decisions after critical thought, and my decisions have landed the plane on trying to follow and be as faithful to the scriptures as I can possibly be. So when it comes to politics, that's my hope for y'all. I love y'all. I'm appreciative of y'all. And hey, listen, man, I'm anticipating us to move forward lovingly with a sense of hope that the world doesn't understand. So much love. Stop hating on each other. Stop being all like bitter at each other. Have conversations with each other. Help enlighten each other. Have some real conversations. You know, I got some friends who vehemently disagree with me. I disagree with them. But guess what? We've sat down and we've said, oh, I never thought about that. And it's been a blessing. So love y'all. God bless y'all. Politics from me to you. God bless. What's going on, y'all? Thank you for checking out my channel. Make sure you hit the like, the subscribe, and ring the bell for the notifications. Also, check me out on social media. Name is spelled LECRAE. God bless y'all.